Welcome to Shambhavi Spectrum SMS Sewing Machine Speaks series. Today, my lovely guest on this Women's Day is Saba Ansari, who's also my buddy. And welcome, Saba. How are you?
Thank you, Shambhavi. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for finding the time. I know you have a busy schedule with a lot of things that you do, but I'm glad you're here. And what can I say? Tell me something. How's Women's Day going on till now? What have you been doing?
For me, it's been rather quiet today. Incidentally, no major commitments. So I'm trying to catch up on stuff at home.
Great, great. Uh, I know that you are very good at sewing and you've been adept at it. And so tell me, when did your sewing journey start?
My sewing journey started, I don't really remember because I must have been around 8 or 10. And we were in times where there was no TV and no internet. So, and everybody at home was sewing, you know. We used to wear clothes that were sewn by my mother or somebody in the family, and everybody was knitting during the winters, and that was how life was. So that was the only thing that, and maybe it was in my blood too, because that was the thing that attracted me, and I would pester my mother during the holidays. I need something to do. I need something to do. So it started off with embroidery because she thought it was too dangerous to give me a sewing machine at that age. So she would mostly sew clothes for me, and then there were some patterns on it that I would embroider. And then from there, it went on to sewing doll clothes because when she was cutting her own stuff that she was going to make, the scraps would come to me and she would cut it into the shapes of little dresses and I would stitch them by hand to make doll clothes. So, and then as I kept growing up and exploring these things, and as I said, probably I was more attracted to this craft than few others in my time. So I was always like, I always wanted to do something. So then eventually, when I must have been around 10 or 12 years old, I would steal into the other room when my mother was resting in the afternoon. And I would try to use her machine secretly because I wasn't allowed to touch it. So, and a funny incident that I still remember is I embroidered a handkerchief and it was round. And I tried to do a bias binding on it.
Wow.
So it ended up, yeah, it ended up becoming a cap because I didn't know that the bias binding had to be adjusted when you are applying it to a round edge. So that was pretty funny. I still remember that. But it's been a learning curve. After that, I went on to sewing clothes like everybody did in the family, and I did a lot of embroidery. I learned chicken curry because that's from my hometown. So I learned chicken curry, and yeah, it's been. I mean, it's always gotten better from there.
Practice makes it more perfect. So, what else can I say? And so, because you started young, is that the reason why you started your girls also young? Because I know at least your younger one does sewing. And tell me more about that.
Yeah, the reason behind that is I always feel that um, everybody, boys or girls, apart from what they do with their coursework or what they do with their professions, everybody should have a certain hobby or a certain additional activity that keeps them occupied and that helps to relax the mind. So, and for me, it was needlecraft. So obviously, that was what I thought I should be teaching my girls. So I started them off on cross stitch and embroidery and crochet, and they have learned pretty well. Whatever they do well. But eventually, they moved on to other things. Like I'm happy about it because everybody has a certain interest. You can't push them into doing that don't want to do. But the younger one now paints, and the elder one is into journaling and calligraphy.
But the good thing about this is they can always return back to it and they appreciate the
Yes,
hard work which has gone into it. So even,
yes,
in the next generation, that is, I think, an important message to say that you don't have to really have it as a hobby, but you appreciate the effort and know how to do it. That is
yes,
kind of,
yes,
and then all said and done, seeing something tangible, whether it's a sweater or a crochet doll or anything which you sew by yourself, I think when you see the tangible part of it, it really makes you feel so happy.
yes.
So
It's
I,
very
I think,
uplifting.
yeah, so I think a skill, even if it's wood carving or something, people should follow their passion or
Yes,
try
it
to
can be
find.
any skill, whether it's wood carving or whether it's painting or it can be anything. I mean,
So, one important question which I wanted to ask you, the sewing machine which you were trying to stealthily work on, was it a hand machine or a leg machine? And wasn't it making noise?
I don't think my mother she caught me. So it wouldn't have been too noisy. My father was the one who used to maintain it. So
Wow.
every few months he would. It's a hand crank machine. It's still there. So
Mm-hmm.
every few months he would take out the parts out and oil everything and keep it running. And that was that is another thing that I remember from my childhood days, and it's a really happy memory, of that time.
Always inquisitive to see what's inside that and how it is. It is a
Yeah,
part of.
and to know that my father was a part of this process, he enjoyed cleaning it up for my mother and sharing in that joy with her. So that's something that's a very happy memory.
So, has sewing machine always been a part of your life since you came to Dubai, and or was it something which you picked up later?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a
It's
cold.
okay. No, no, please, please take care. Yeah.
So yeah, sewing machine. Actually, I used my mother's, and then when I got married, the first thing that when I got engaged, the first thing that my parents bought for me was a sewing machine for my trousseau. So,
Okay.
but what happened was, incidentally, after I got engaged, my husband moved to Saudi Arabia, and I had to go with him when I got married. So I couldn't possibly carry that sewing machine with me. So now, when I reached there and I spent a couple of months there, and life was very quiet and boring in Saudi Arabia about 25 years ago. So after a couple of months, I told my husband, look, either I get a sewing machine or I'll go crazy. So, I mean, we were on a small salary there, but we ended up spending upon almost like 1100 dirhams on a small sewing machine because they were pretty expensive at that time.
Mhm.
So it was a brand called Jaguar, and
Okay.
it's not available anymore, I think, because I tried Google searching it, it's not available anymore. So, so it was a brand called Jaguar, and it was small in size because my husband said, "Look, we are going to change jobs and we are going to keep moving cities and countries, so it's better you buy a compact one." So that stayed with me for I think about 15, 16 years until I had come here and I was still using it. And I must have used it in a few of the Triple S sessions as well.
For
Yeah.
the safe strap. And so very,
Yeah.
very, very amazing. So I think they did make machines those days which lasted for a long time.
Yes,
And it's a
for its size, it's pretty heavy, because it's not plastic, it's metal. So for the
Mhm.
size that you see, it's pretty heavy to lift.
Okay.
And I think that's what's kept it running for so long. It's still in a running condition.
Wow. So tell
Yeah.
me something, if it's 1100 dirhams, and also did it have other stitches also apart from just straight
Yeah,
and
it had a few decorative stitches, but it was small in size. I mean, it was good for my purposes. At that time, I wasn't quilting so much, so it was good for my purposes, and yeah, it served me well.
now that you've introduced your quilting, tell us about that.
Okay, so quilting actually, again, it came in early into my life. I was in college in Lucknow, and I used to go to the bookstore because I'm also an avid reader. So I used to frequent the bookstore. And one day there was this book, Japanese Embroidery book, which was about quilting. And it had all scrappy projects. So, and since there was so much at home because mother was always stitching and there were bags full of scraps at home. So when I saw this book, I said, okay, now this is for me because all that scrap is going to waste and now I can use it. So I bought that book, and it was expensive. It cost me 100 rupees at that time.
That was expensive. I
It
agree.
was expensive, yes, but I couldn't let go, so I bought it. And then it started from there. The book had the olden ways of quilting, templates cut by hand and then joined together by hand and then quilted by hand. But I did make many projects from there using all of my mother's scraps. So it started there, and then I off and on I kept doing things, uh, like with the stuff that was at home, and because internet still wasn't that prevalent, YouTube still wasn't that prevalent. So on my own, I kept doing things until about 11 years ago. I joined the Quilters Guild here, the local, which is now called as the Ranchers Ladies Quilters Circle.
Okay.
So I've been a part of the Ranchers Ladies Quilters Circle for about 8 years now.
Hmm.
And that has been a major learning curve in the quilting journey because along the way, I found a couple of excellent mentors. And just by looking at what people are doing, there is so much to learn.
I agree with you on that, that sometimes I don't actually see the instructions or, listen to people talking, but actually watch what they are doing, and you learn
Yes,
so much in stitching. So for any budding sewing enthusiast, I think this is an important message, that watch people while they are doing stuff,
yes,
even if it's a YouTube tutorial. Don't
yeah.
just listen to them. I think
Yeah, and
you
that is
brought up.
why a sewing or a quilting community is very important. I'm happy that the communities are coming up now. At the time when I moved to Dubai, it was so difficult to find a space where you could find like-minded people. And I was never into kitty parties, so it was hard for me. So, but I'm so happy that such spaces are coming up now. So it's
Great.
good for the budding sewists and the quilters.
Right, great. So, from the quilting, I know that you are also into hand embroidery, and like you said, chicken curry, which is special
Yeah.
from Lucknow. How do you share your knowledge or skill with other people, Sabah? Tell me more about that.
I like for a few years now, I have been doing workshops within the guild. They are part of the guild, uh, but I and my husband in this case has been very, very supportive. In fact, to some extent, pushy, telling me to do something with my skills. But I guess my business acumen is really bad. I'm not good at business, so I never had the courage to really start something. But COVID came as a boon, I would say. It came as a blessing because what happened was the quilting industry in the US is extremely wide. It's huge beyond anybody's imagination. And what happened was when COVID came, everybody came online. So people started offering all kinds of group activities and all kinds of trainings and all kinds of things that you were looking for, but you were not able to find. It all came online. So very recently, 1.5 years ago, I got connected with a couple of communities in the US. Um, and at this point of time, I have started my own website, and I have just started off doing a few virtual workshops. So yeah, it looks like the beginning of a new journey now.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you. And I have seen some of these which you have I mean the workshop posters that you've shared. I have seen that, and so one thing, like you said, COVID has done for all of us is made things accessible, which we normally would not have been,
Yes,
able to go there in person, or in fact, even people accessible who we would never have been
yes,
able to get in
very
touch
true.
with. And
Yeah,
in the next coming hybrid world, that is going to continue. Sabah, would
yes.
you like to share some of the things which you have done? And what I'll do for that is I'll remove myself from the screen, and you can go ahead and share whatever you have made and talk about it. And I'll come back, and I'm hearing you right
Okay.
now.
Okay,
Okay?
so I
Yeah.
I just brought along a few things that I have made over a period of time. So it's mostly quilting these days. I also do recently I have started picking up on chicken curry again because somehow I thought that this is something that needs to go out to the world. The chicken curry that we know that is out in the commercial world is only shadow work nowadays, with a few stitches here and there, which is hardly an impression of the real chicken curry. So I am very passionate about letting this go out to the world and let people know what real chicken curry looks like. So I have actually started the first of my virtual classes on chicken curry. I eventually plan to move on to quilting projects as well. So here are a few This is recently something that we made. In fact, last week we were making these pot holders.
Yeah, it
With the
looks
quilting
great.
group.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
When I remove myself from the stream, you can't hear me. That is the only thing.
Yeah.
So, but I'm here,
Oh,
I'm watching you. Yeah. So
okay.
now, yeah. So when you're alone, that means you're on your own, but I'm hearing
Okay.
you.
Okay.
And
So,
I want to give wider space to what you're showing. That's why. So this is
yes.
great. Yeah. I'll,
Yeah, this is something that I've done. And then these are some old projects. This is another, I think most of these are projects that we have been doing in the quilting group, in the local quilting group. So this is again a bag that we made some time ago. I was leading the group and I was teaching the ladies how to do this. It's
it
the
looks
pattern from
gorgeous. Yeah. It looks
it's
gorgeous.
the
And I have
pattern
to,
from a
I
book.
have to
Yeah. So, and these are fun techniques, how you assemble them, how you go about making things. Another bag. This is again another fun technique. It's called chenilling, and this is how it looks. It when you It's like the fabric is cut on the bias, and so it creates a kind of fur-like effect. Uh, this is another tote bag that I did.
Is there anything else that you would like to show, please?
Okay, so something that, as we've been talking about, something that I'm very passionate about is embroidery. So even now, even in my quilting, I like to incorporate a lot of embroidery and embellishments. So this is a little mini quilt that I did a while
Okay.
ago.
I'll disappear.
Yeah, okay. So this is a mini quilt that I did a while ago. So as you can see, there's a lot of embellishment on it. The tree is embroidered. The mat is embroidered. The slippers are made with tiny beads and felt. And then, of course, there are conch shells and other stuff. So I like to incorporate a lot of embroidery and this kind of stuff in the projects that I do.
It's beautiful. And
Thank
I
you.
don't know how many hours you must have taken to work on this. You need some level of patience. And are you a perfectionist, Saba?
Not really. I wouldn't call myself a perfectionist because I feel like if you go too much after perfection, you don't get anything done.
True.
So I'm sure if someone looks at my stuff, if a perfectionist looks at my stuff really close, I'm sure they'll find flaws. But I like those flaws because how is it handmade if it doesn't have flaws?
I completely agree with you. And I think we should have more tolerance for flaws, especially when it's
Yeah,
handmade. Uh,
yeah,
Sabah, tell me something. You from the Jaguar machine, you've bought some other machines, sewing machine as
yeah,
well. So for
yeah,
anybody who's searching for purchasing a machine, and we get these queries very often, and you and I
yeah,
answer it in our
yeah,
community group.
yeah.
Tell me something which special you think that one should look out for. Apart from whatever budget one has, are there some features which you think people should look out for, and it is a must, or it can help them later on? Is there anything like that?
Yeah. So as a quilter, when I was looking for, I told you I had the little jaguar, and when I started quilting at a certain higher level, I was looking for perfect quarter-inch seams and perfect matching points, and to be able to quilt on my machine. So then that was the point where my jaguar was not adequate for the work that I was doing. So that was the time when I started doing some research, asking around people and going to shops and looking at stuff. And I found that there is a huge range, if you go to buy a high-end quilting machine, it might cost you. right up to 15,000 or 20,000 dirhams. And somehow I felt that since I'm not a business, especially at that point about 6 or 7 years ago, since I'm not a business and I'm asking my husband to pay for the machine that I want to buy, it doesn't make sense. So I did some more research, and then I ended up with Janami. And I found that for the same features, for the same quality, for the same sturdiness, you can find, for some reason, here in the UAE, you find Janami machines to be much more reasonably priced.
Yeah. You're
So,
right
so
about
I
that. Yeah,
ended,
you're right.
yeah, I ended up buying a big Janomi machine. It's an MC 8900, the Horizon series, and it has a huge throat, so I can put in large amounts of fabric. I can push in when I'm quilting, and it has, I mean, any features that you're looking for, an automatic threader, a thread cutter, knee lifter, anything that a quilter would look for in a machine, I think it has everything.
So that's great. So anybody who is interested in this, you suggest that they look at. Is it an embroidery machine also?
No, this one is not an embroidery model.
Just,
They do
just
have some models where they also have quilting and embroidery in the same machine. But since I was not going in for machine embroidery, I knew that from the start.
from, yeah. So
I'm for
that's
hand
good. You
embroidery.
knew, yeah. That's a good thing
Yeah.
that you knew. You know what you're doing, because I think your hand embroidery has not only memories along with the threads, also a lot of emotions which
Yes.
go way back. So
Yeah.
it's been great talking to you, Saba, and I wish you all
Yeah.
the best, and I hope your business, your workshop, everything that you are looking at does very well.
Thank you so much, Shambhavi.
Any last tip you want to share with the audience? Anything with people who are at it or sitting on the fence, whether they should buy a machine or not, or whether it's so or not? Anything you want to share with them?
Something that I have sometimes mentioned on the group as well. If you are planning to buy a machine and you're planning to sew even a little, like once in a while, once a week, once in 15 days, don't go for the very cheap models, because in the long, a sewing machine is something that will stay with you. So my sewing machines have, like the old one, the Jaguar, it still works. It's lasted me like 25, 27 years. And the one that I bought now, it's been going well for the last 6, 7 years. My mother's machine is 60 years old. It still works. So, so it's something that stays with you. So even if you're planning to do a little bit of sewing, planning to learn, and you never know, you might get interested and go
Yeah.
on to something greater. So buy something, even if you're not planning to spend a hell of a lot of money, buy something that will last you. You find sewing machines in the range of about 7 to 800, or maximum up to about 1,200 dirhams, which are excellent, which have a metal body and which are really sturdy. When you are stitching, even at high speed, they don't sheet. So I always give the suggestion that it's a good idea to do a little bit of research and go for something mid-range. Don't go for the supermarket plastic models, because they are not good enough.
Correct. If you want to continue, then definitely, and have a long lifetime, definitely one
Yes,
should look at
yes.
something, and look little beyond what you are actually doing right now. Look at the future as to what you could be
Yeah,
doing.
and
So
research is
that's
important. I think even research with you guiding everybody on the group, the research has become much easier. There's plenty of information there.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, a little bit of research, trying to figure out what you plan to do eventually, that goes a long way in helping to
definitely.
choose your right model.
Thank you, Sabah. The whole SMS series started because I decided that why should I be sharing only my knowledge and information, which is very
Yeah.
limited? I should invite
No,
others on.
you are an expert in your field.
Yeah, so it's so great having you here. Thank you so very much. Wish you all the best. And I look forward to having you come in another section or maybe next year as a business person,
Thank,
as a business
thank you
owner.
so much, Shambhavi. I'm so happy to be here. Lovely chatting
Thank
with
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Don't
much.
go away.
Thank
I'll
you.
just say bye to you here now, but don't go away. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Shambhavi. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.